All right, let's just get right into it. If you've been bumping heads with Windows 11 lately, maybe you're fed up with the forced updates, or your perfectly good hardware is suddenly quote unquote unsupported for no good reason, or maybe you just fundamentally believe your computer should actually belong to you, well, you are definitely not alone. A ton of folks are craving more control. But look, making the jump to Linux isn't just swapping out your desktop wallpaper. It completely changes the way your machine operates, and that's exactly why I put together this explainer. Think of this as your totally risk-free, pragmatic roadmap. We're going to make the switch safely without losing a single personal file, photo, or password along the way. We are doing this the smart way. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's the exact route we're taking today. First, we'll establish that Linux is not Windows. Second, apps, games, and hardware. Third, choosing your Linux distribution. Fourth, avoiding catastrophic data loss. Fifth, dual boot versus full replacement. And finally, we'll wrap up with your safe migration checklist. So, step one, Linux is not Windows. It's a whole new paradigm. Now, I know that sounds incredibly obvious, but accepting this fundamental reality is literally the #1 reason migrations either succeed or fail. Treating Linux as a completely new environment is the absolute key here. Just think about the difference in mindsets. In Windows, you're totally used to the C drive being the center of your universe, right? And when you need an app, you hunt down a website and download a .exe setup file. But on Linux, it's a single directory tree with folders like Home, etc., and USR. And when you want software, you mostly use built-in app stores or package managers. Honestly, it's a lot like how you use your smartphone. The first few days are absolutely going to feel a bit weird. You'll probably wonder, wait, where did my C drive go? But don't panic. All I ask is that you be patient with the unfamiliarity. Don't rush it. Just observe how the new system organizes itself. Moving on to part 2, apps, games, and hardware. The big question, will it work? Let's tackle the single most common anxiety beginners face before we tweak a single setting. Will my everyday games and apps actually work on Linux? It's a totally valid concern, and we need to hit this head on and look at the practical reality of software compatibility today. The reality here is a bit of a mixed bag, but honestly, it is way better than it used to be. For everyday browsing, content creation, and gaming, tools like Firefox, VLC, OBS Studio, and Discord run beautifully natively. And thanks to Steam's Proton technology, which is a total game changer, by the way, a massive library of Windows games runs seamlessly right out of the box. But, and this is a really big but, you have got to make a realistic, honest list of the apps you depend on every single week. Because if your paycheck literally depends on the desktop version of Adobe Premiere, or you play heavily guarded, aggressive anti-cheat multiplayer games, those are hard roadblocks. They'll likely fail or require some seriously complex workarounds. You really have to know your roadblocks before you crash into them. So the crucial point is, how do you safely test your specific hardware? Well, say hello to the Live USB. This is a flash drive that lets you boot up and fully test drive the Linux environment without erasing your hard drive or actually installing a single thing. It is your absolute best friend. You boot into it and you can safely check if your Wi-Fi connects, if that obscure printer of yours works, and if your screen resolution is spot on. It's a completely safe, zero-risk test drive. Okay, part 3, choosing your Linux distribution, or as I like to call it, picking your vehicle. Now, if you do a quick search online, you're going to find hundreds of versions of Linux. These are called distributions, or distros for short. Take a deep breath. Do not panic. You definitely do not need to test hundreds of them. We can boil this down to 4 rock-solid options for beginners making the jump from Windows. At the very top of the list is Linux Mint Cinnamon. This is my absolute highest recommendation for the easiest starting point. The layout is incredibly familiar. It's got a panel, a menu, and system tray icons exactly like a traditional Windows desktop, plus some really practical beginner tools. Now, if you want massive community support, Ubuntu LTS is fantastic for long-term mainstream adoption. Zorin OS, that offers a highly polished, super modern first impression with a crystal clear installer. And Kubuntu is perfect if you love tweaking things and want that highly adjustable KDE Plasma desktop. But seriously, if you're ever in doubt, just start with Mint. This brings us to part 4, avoiding catastrophic data loss. Welcome to the danger zone. Okay, I need you to listen to me very carefully right now. This is the peak moment of tension in our migration journey. You have to assume that a mistake is possible. Clicking the wrong option in an installer can and absolutely will erase your drive. This is where you have to be highly prepared. You see, many Windows 11 computers use BitLocker device encryption. BitLocker protects your drive, but it can utterly confuse a Linux installer if it's not handled right. If you get locked out during this partitioning process, you're going to be asked for your BitLocker recovery key. That's a 48-digit number. And here's the kicker. If you lose this key, Microsoft support literally can't recreate it for you. Your data will just be gone forever. So finding and saving this 48-digit key beforehand is the single most important thing you can possibly do.
And speaking of saving your data, always remember this: a backup you never tested is only a hope. I mean, dragging and copying your files over to an external hard drive is a great first step, sure, but it is not enough. You must manually go into that external drive, open up your documents, open your photos, and visually verify that the backup actually works and nothing got corrupted along the way.
And beyond your standard documents and folders, you have got to dig deep and export the forgotten things. These are the small critical files that people always leave behind and deeply, deeply regret later. Use this as your guide. Export your browser bookmarks, double-check your password manager recovery method, save your local email archives, grab those non-cloud game saves, back up your software license keys, and please export your custom VPN configurations. Do not rely on memory for this stuff.
All right, part 5, dual boot versus replacement. Making the choice. Once your data is locked down, backed up, and verified, you're facing a fork in the road for your actual installation. Let's compare these two distinct paths. On one side, we have dual boot. This means Windows and Linux live right there on the exact same computer, and you just pick which one to start when you boot up. It's definitely safer for beginners because Windows is always right there if you need to go back. However, it is a bit more complex. You have to shrink your Windows partition from inside Windows Disk Management first to avoid some really costly errors. Then, on the other side, we have full replacement. This is a much cleaner and simpler setup post-install, but it is completely destructive to your old drive. You should only pick full replacement if you are 100% confident in your verified backups. And finally, Part 6, your safe migration checklist, the route. Let's move to and see how this all builds into a structured, actionable, and incredibly safe procedure. Welcome to the pre-install phase. These are the strict habits you need before you ever click Install. Step 1, write down those critical weekly apps. Step 2, create and physically verify those backups. Step 3, save that 48-digit BitLocker key and make a Windows Recovery USB just in case you ever want to revert. And Step 4, boot up that live USB to test your Wi-Fi, audio, and hardware in a totally risk-free environment. Now, for the focused learner, you know the job doesn't end at the installation success screen. In the post-install phase, you need to immediately run system updates to grab the latest security patches. Then install any recommended drivers, especially for things like your graphics card or Wi-Fi. And finally, configure your firewall and set up system snapshots. Distros like Mint have these incredible built-in snapshot tools that basically act like system restore points, just in case an update ever goes sideways on you. And regardless of what operating system you end up using, you absolutely must adhere to the golden 3-2-1 backup plan moving forward. That means you should always have 3 copies of your important data stored on 2 different types of storage media, with at least 1 copy stored safely away from the computer entirely, like say on a trusted cloud service or an external drive you keep at the office. So what does this all mean? We arrive at the ultimate question. Should everyone switch from Windows 11 to Linux? Well, the honest, impartial answer based on everything we've looked at today is no. If you absolutely depend on aggressive anti-cheat games or very specific Microsoft Office features, staying on Windows might just be a necessity for you. Migration is a highly practical choice. It's not an emotional one. But if you want transparency, real control, and a system totally free from commercial pressure, making a controlled transition following this exact roadmap is incredibly rewarding. So why not grab a flash drive, create a live USB, and just see how it feels? After all, if your computer truly belongs to you, shouldn't you be the one deciding how it works?